Hello, I'm Mark with UtahGuide.com. I'm your Utah guide today for Bryce Canyon National Park. And we're going to spend some time teaching you and educating you on all the things you'd like to see and do in the area. And let's just take a look at a map here of the Western United States so we can see where is Bryce Canyon National Park very briefly. Here's the state of Utah. It's surrounded by states in the Western United States. The best access is probably from Las Vegas, 4 hours to Bryce Canyon National Park, or Salt Lake City is also about 4 hours to Bryce Canyon National Park. Bryce Canyon is in the southwestern corner of the state of Utah. Either way, you're going to come on I-15 and then get on what's called Highway 20. I'm going to zoom in on that. And then drop down on Highway 89 just a few miles, and then venture up about 10 miles on scenic Byway 12. And this is a close-up of scenic Byway 12. Let's take a look at this area right here. You're going to come from here to Bryce Canyon right over here. Bryce Canyon, as you do, you're going to come up onto a plateau. You're going to rise in elevation. You're going to go through a place called Red Canyon that looks like Bryce Canyon National Park. Some people get here and say, that must be Bryce Canyon. They turn around and go the other direction. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's not anything quite like what you're going to see at the actual national park. Bryce Canyon is a 20-mile long national park. It sits up on a plateau. It is not really a canyon, but a series of amphitheaters that run on the eastern edge of this national park. And those are the boundaries of the national park there. Let's zoom in and we're going to look and see. This is the main amphitheater. And this main amphitheater is where all the trails are that most people will do. We'll come back to that in just a minute. We're going to go to Google Earth and take a look at what the amphitheater, the main amphitheater, looks like and what the park. Let's just zoom back out a little bit here. And this is these amphitheaters along the edge of this plateau. And you can see them all. And this is the main amphitheater. We'll come back to this picture in just a minute. For a second, we're going to talk a little bit about how is Bryce Canyon formed? And I should start with, where does Bryce Canyon get its name? Bryce Canyon gets its name from a man named Ebenezer Bryce, who was a pioneer who settled in this area. And let's go to one of these pictures here. I'm going to get to the right one. This one will work. This one shows the Bryce Valley area down below Bryce Canyon National Park. Ebenezer settled in this area. He had some cows. They got wandering up into this area of the canyon or the amphitheater. He lost them. He had to come find them. His only comment was, it was one hell of a place to lose a cow. Well, that's Ebenezer Bryce, and he settled back in the 1860s, 1870s in the Bryce Canyon area. So that's your quick story about the history of the park. Now, how are these formations formed? These are limestone formations. They're what we call hoodoos. And water gets down in the seams of the cracks of these formations. And especially during the wintertime, that water will freeze. It will then expand and it will crack these formations apart and break off bits of rock. And so these hoodoos have been formed over thousands, if not millions of years by this ongoing erosion process. That's enough of that information. So hoodoos, the color, I should tell you that the color inside these formations comes from iron inside the rock that is rusting. It's oxidizing, and it's what makes all of these beautiful hues and colors inside the park. So that's what's created these amphitheaters on the edges of the park. Now let's talk about how you would best experience Bryce Canyon National Park. As you come into the park off of Highway 12, the first road, and these are all paved roads, by the way, is Fairyland Point. It's a road that circles out to a parking lot. You can just take in the view right here, or you can actually get on some very long hikes. These are 5-6 mile hike, this one right here, just to connect to these other hikes. But if you're up to those kinds of things, it's certainly a good one you can do. Most people come into the main part of the park. They go into the feast stations are here in the visitor center. And then what they're coming to mostly is this point over here to Sunrise and Sunset Point. And there you see these letter P's on this map. Those are parking areas that are accessible, and you can park your vehicle. And sometimes those get busy, and so you want to ask as you come in the gate, where's the best place to park today? So a lot of people will come and they'll walk along this rim trail along the edge of the amphitheater. And you can come from all the way from Fairyland Point along the rim trail. It's beautiful. or you can just come out to one of these parking areas and walk along the rim trail between these points, sunrise and sunset. Now, my recommendation is that you need to get down inside one of these trails. Remember, this is at 8,000 feet. Most of us live at 5,000 or less. Some of us live at sea level. When you come to 8,000 feet and hike, you're going to feel a difference. So whatever you walk down in this amphitheater, and let's go back to our Google map, if you walk off a trail down off the edge here and walk, and these trails zigzag down into the canyon, but if you walk off of them, you're going to have to come back up them, and bear that in mind as you go down. I recommend, if you're not feeling quite up to it, just walk down a little ways, take a look at these formations. You're going to see the bluest sky you've ever seen from down inside these formations. When you look up and see the blue sky against these red rock formations, it's one of the prettiest sights you'll ever see in your life. Now, you have those 2 points there. There are trails that come off here. Probably the most common ones are coming off down Wall Street and circling back up this route, or going down the Queen's Garden route and coming back up one of these loop trails right here to back up on top of the rim. There are other overlooks that you can drive to. One of them is Inspiration Point, and you can park your vehicle here and walk up the ridge line here, or you can drive your vehicle all the way out to Bryce Point, park your vehicle and walk out to some overlook points. You'll see these trails that do zigzag down into the amphitheaters. This is the rim trail, and this is the trails down in the amphitheater. You can take your vehicle and go down Highway 63. Remember, down the length of the park all the way down to the end of the park. And I recommend that to get away from some of the very busy areas of the park. Now let's just back up here. Where are you going to stay when you come to Bryce Canyon National Park? Well, there are places like Tropic, Cannonville, Bryce Canyon City itself, and along the plateau here, and along this area, Panguitch, Hatch. Those all have places to stay. Bryce Canyon is not far. It's only 75 minutes from Zion National Park. There are some people that will come and stay in areas over here on the east side of the park, and then see both Zion and Bryce from one place. You can unpack once and see both parks. When you come up this way to Bryce Canyon, this is on Scenic Byway 12, which goes all the way to Capitol Reef National Park up this way. That is a 120-mile scenic byway. It's rated by Car and Driver magazine as one of the best in the United States, maybe one of the top 10. And I would say it rates that. It's got 2 national parks, 3 state parks, and a national monument along the highway, and a national forest. It's an incredible scenic drive. But coming back to Bryce Canyon, there's one other thing I want to talk to you about today. And that is, if you come back out of Highway 63 from Bryce, you can descend off the plateau. There is a trail over this way, by the way, that takes you into the park. That's also accessible. Your park map will tell you all about that. Coming down past Tropic to Cannonville, you actually leave Scenic Byway 12, and you're going to come down towards this state park, which is Kodachrome Basin State Park. Kodachrome Basin from Cannonville, just about 6 miles from there to there. And this is 11 miles down. So a total of 17 miles to Kodachrome Basin from this area here. Kodachrome Basin State Park. What is Kodachrome Basin State Park? Let's just give you a couple of pictures so you can see. It's an area where it has some very fantastic, unique formations. See this little tower right here? I'm going to show you some other pictures. That's that tower right there. And this is another tower right here. See this white stone that's there? That stone is actually, this used to be an empty geyser hole, where this is. And this used to be like Yellowstone, perhaps, where there were geysers shooting up to the surface and erupting out of the surface. And then they made these geyser pipes, if you will, where the water passed through. Well, after a while, that thermal activity ended. And what happened was eventually water settled into this area and settled down into these geyser holes. And it was a different kind of sediment. It was a more dense sediment that once it solidified, it was harder. The stone was much harder than the surrounding sediment. So everything around it has eroded over time and left these geyser holes filled with sediment standing. So Kodachrome Basin State Park, it's got arches, it's got great formations, got some camping there. I think it's a great place for you to visit. Now, one little story as we wrap this up. Some of you may have heard of the piano guys. Years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I was able to connect with the piano guys, and I recommend you get onto YouTube and just check who are the piano guys. Well, they take a piano and they take a cello, and these two gentlemen, let's see, Stephen Sharp Nelson and John Schmidt, they take their piano and cello and go play in scenic places all around the world, in fact, and they compose music that is just fantastic to accompany their scenic locations. Well, I was able to arrange to bring these guys to Bryce Canyon 10 years ago. This is my son Eli, myself, and John Schmidt. Uh, you check out the video Titanium by the piano guys. You'll see them on the rim of Bryce Canyon National Park. The people that heard the music playing throughout the day at Bryce Canyon that day, they finally found where the piano was. We rolled this out here in the dark, out to the rim of one of the overlooks, and it was just fantastic. But people kept coming to them throughout the day and saying, "We heard your beautiful music echoing across Bryce Canyon National Park." Well, that's a rare event. That doesn't happen very often, something like that. But these guys happen to be coming back in 2023 to Bryce Canyon, maybe to celebrate that 10 years ago, they first did this. And I was proud to say that I had an opportunity to do that. So Bryce Canyon National Park and Scenic Byway 12, what a wonderful place to visit. And you're going to have a great experience. Thanks for spending some time with me as we talk about how you can best experience Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. I'm Mark with UtahGuide.com.